Lisa George riding shotgun with us this evening, and we're going to speak a little bit about her book. And also, I've been promising to share the testimony of all the things that I've been going through in regard to health and well being. And very interesting in that when I spoke to Lisa about this, it was something that she similarly had gone through previously. So, Lisa, if you would tell people the name of your book, the inspiration for it, and some of the contents.
Hey, Zen. Good to see you and see everybody here in the chat already. And it's so great to fellowship with all of you today. And yes, I am finally finished with my new book, and it is not published yet, of course. I just was so relieved to have all of this information out there so that everyone can access it. I've been sending this protocol to people via email. I've printed it out and meet with people in person here. So it'll be really nice to have it all together in a book, and with Zen's suggestions of having testimonies at the beginning and kind of a little write-up as to why I became so interested in health and healing for myself and other people. It's been a long journey, but it's so good to be kind of almost on the other side here where I'm experiencing the healing and the benefits just as you, Zen. And so the title of the book is called Ola Means Healing. That's, of course, the title of the show today. I'm hoping that we'll have the cover completed in the next few weeks, and then we can work on getting it published so we can show it in the Sacred Word Publishing bookstore and make it available to anyone who's dealing with someone that has chronic pain or themselves are experiencing it and seeing so many doctors, as both Zen and I have done, and not really had any straight answers except for to take the poison, I guess you could call it, that they're prescribing. And I'm not going to knock all of prescriptions, because some of them are very necessary for a short term. But when it comes to chronic pain, I'm not sure what your experience is then, but it seems like they're just more than willing to just write out something, get rid of you. Then you come back a month later, okay, you're still in pain. Okay, let me write you another one. And it goes on for years that way.
Yes, that has been my experience. And unfortunately, the protocol has been to, in the way that doctors are trained now, and even nurses, they learn all of the various drugs that are prescribed for different ailments. And they don't really ever look into the prevention or what is the root cause. And that's an unfortunate thing. But hello, everybody. And I just want to say also that we are in no way medical experts. What we're going to be talking about this evening is just based upon our own experience and the things that we had to come to learn the hard way in dealing with, for me, especially, it's been years of pain and frustration and uncertainty, not even knowing which way to go with regard to the antibodies that I was having to take over and over and over, and the urinary infections that I had to contend with for what was literally a decade. And just to, I remember going to the Flat Earth Conference to speak, and I was already, then at that time on different antibodies. But hello and welcome everybody in the chat. It's so nice for all of you to join with us this evening. And I think that this is a very important topic. And, we do like to focus and talk about the extra biblical books, and also, make people aware of the gospel. Well, the Great Commission is a very serious priority for us. But I do believe that this is absolutely part of the Watchman's protocol and responsibility, that we are to tell you about things both material and spiritual. Even though the focus is, yes, spirit, we for this lifetime are dwelling within these bodies, and we want to have a good experience. We want to be of good health and well-being and not struggle. And so, Lisa, let me get you to comment and we'll move forward.
Yes, for sure. And we see this among the patriarchs, actually. I mean, as far as
Hmm.
helping other people, it's so much easier to help others if we're feeling good ourselves. And to have this experience, I mean, I'm grateful for it now. It's horrible going through it and having to learn the hard way, like you said, Zen, but I'm really grateful that I went through everything that I did to learn to help others. And I've already seen that just in the last couple of years that I've experienced more and more healing and just been able to help others kind of make their way through the medical system and just to kind of know how to respond and what to respond to doctors that are trying to, well, and for me anyway, it felt like they were always trying to force me to do something I didn't want to do. And then,
Hmm.
especially if you have the big C, they really, really,
Yeah.
really try to force you to do things you don't want to do. And it's researching all of that just made me so much more aware of how closely it's tied to financial systems and how much the
Right.
bankers actually control it. And of course, the things that they're trying to force you to do, they have a pretty big payout. And so I hate to say it, but I mean, out of all, like when I wrote my book, 29 Doctors, out of all of those 29, I think maybe three possibly were pretty helpful. But to go through that for over a decade, like you did, Zen, too, it's just you end up just finally sometimes just wanting to just give in instead. It feels like a constant fight every time you go to every time I would go to the doctor anyway.
It is a battle, and for me, being paralyzed and using a wheelchair, that already puts me in a population that the doctors don't know a whole lot about with regard to. I mean, yeah, you can read about paralysis from a book, but if you don't live it, you don't experience it, you don't really know about it. And they say that I'm not supposed to feel anything below the level of my disability, but that is entirely not the truth. I have a lot of feeling. It's just unfortunately has to do with, pain and discomfort, and that's just part of, the whole thing of being disabled. And I've been in a wheelchair for 30 years. It's crazy that it's been that long, but it has. And so let me give you a chance to, just introduce what led you, inspired you to write this, and how important it's going to be for a lot of people because the information, again, we're not medical professionals. We're only speaking from experience, our own experiences, and we're going to tell you what happened and what worked for us. Everybody's going to be different, and certainly we are not trying to say that this is the way to go or that uh, everybody else is wrong. Certainly, we don't think that at all. There's a place and a time for a lot of things, and I do believe without a doubt that the medical establishment here, especially with surgery and how they're able to put people to sleep and do these major operations, that is life-saving miracle for a lot of people with a lot of things that they go through. But again, I do think that the prescription of antibodies for every little thing that could be excessive, and that does lead to problems later down the line.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a,
I totally agree. Totally agree, Zen. And you are a living miracle. I mean, that's a really long time to be living in the situation that you are. And you mentioned before too that a lot of your friends or people that you've known had similar injuries just are not with us anymore. And so we're just so
mm,
grateful that you're still here, Zen, and that especially that you're able to live life um, free of a lot of the discomfort you've been feeling the past 10 years when you're on that prescription. That's
uh,
just it's such a huge difference in your voice. I mean, just your energy level, I'm sure. It's such a huge deception when we're eating things that are actually horrible for us, but they're being marketed, they're being pushed. They of course they're addictive and like things with sugar in it, for example.
mm, mm,
And there's no input from the medical field as to what we should and should not be eating to live like our best life, to like live a
Right.
life free of all these discomforts. And instead of giving us that type of advice, because they're not allowed to, according to one of my doctors that I'm friends with, I straight up just asked her, why don't you just tell me what I should and should not eat? Oh, no, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm like, okay, well, that really ties in. You pretty much are what you eat. So that seems like
Right.
that would be connected somehow, right? And so how this came about as far as putting this book together, well, you met, I had, like I said, I had the paperwork, I had emails, I would email people this information and I'd try to work with them. I preferred in person so that I can keep kind of good tabs on them and how they're doing, especially if they've been diagnosed with a higher stage of the C word. And so and we started out just doing it here in Hawaii. But the way I came up with this list, it's not all me. And I document this in this new book that I just finished. How that came about is before we did Hebrew Online with you, Zen, when you invited us to come into your channel and teach for like a year, we had Hebrew classes in our house. And this was ongoing. I think we started doing this in maybe 2015. And then around 2017, I met a couple people online that were part of the Flat Earth community, and they lived kind of near us. And we invited them to come to our Hebrew class. And it turns out that these guys knew so much about natural healing and through food and through supplements. And it was just a miracle that they came to our house, because by 2017, I was in such bad condition. I mean, we were trying to still travel. I was just on so much medication. I was on a super high level of fentanyl, especially, which is really deadly. And I felt like it was almost the end for me as well. By 2017, I felt like I'd seen so many doctors and they just all try to tell me different things and nothing really works, kind of like your situation, Zen. And
Hmm.
when these guys said, no, there's a way out, and they started describing to me their testimonies of people that they've worked with, and these are all actually in my book, people that they'd worked with, people that had just had these miraculous healing. And I said, well, have you ever helped anyone with endometriosis? And one of them, this is an eye opener for me, one of them said, well, weren't you given chemo as part of your treatment for endometriosis, like pretty much up front, like way back when I was in my 20s? Because I had shared my testimony a little bit with them. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what does that tell you? And I said, that it's the C word. And he's like, well, they're treating it the same way and it grows the same way and it's caused by the same things. And I was just blown away there. So right there, that made me just kind of stop and just say, okay, guys, let's sit down together. I want you to put together all the healing foods. We're going to make two lists. I want a list of all the healing foods that I should be eating and all the foods that I should not be eating, because I want to tape these up on my refrigerator. And they said, well, it can't just be you. You're not the only one in your house. I had Noble and Isaac right at that time. And they said, everybody in the house has to be on board if you're going to be successful in this. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm the one that's sick. They're not sick at all. Well, Isaac was having some issues because of his own healing, but Noble, not sick in whatsoever. And they said, no, they said, if you even have the food in the house that you're addicted to, even if other people are eating it and you know that that's not yours, if you're in like a state of total addiction to these certain foods, especially sugar, or ice cream for that matter, um, what's going to be the first thing you go to in the middle of the night if you wake up starving? Like he said, because it's not fun. The first couple weeks, it's like kind of what your experience then, where you just get super hungry and any time of the
Oh.
night or day, and you just have to go find something. And so we really went through our entire pantry and fridge. And I think you did this too, Zen, right? And cleaned
Hmm.
out like all the stuff that that wasn't on the list, or things that cause candida or cause, for me, endometriosis. And it's pretty much the same like across the board. But that's how we came up with the list. So we sat down and I credited these two guys that both had histories in naturopath and in healing others. And it's such an amazing list, because I really, really stuck to that for the first for about 2 years. I just stuck to that. I did not deviate from that thing at all. And that's when the healing started happening. But I think yours was quite a bit quicker though, Zen, than mine.
Yes, and but I was to the point where, and when I was having these urinary infections, and I was in so much pain, like the antibodies weren't helping, and I didn't realize that they were for yeast until I, looked them up, and I'm so glad I did. But when I was using the bathroom, it would spike my blood pressure. It would cause me to go over 200, which, I knew
Wow.
that was dangerous. And there were many episodes where this happened to me. And so I knew that my body couldn't take it, that I was either going to have a heart attack or a stroke, one or the other. And so I thought, that it was just at some point. But, anyways, I went in for minor surgery to have some bladder stones removed because sometimes that was part of the culprit, or at least that was what the urologist did recommend, and with doing all the antibodies. And so I knew that my time was short, and so that night when I looked it all up, it was maybe 2 days after I got out of from minor surgery, still on antibodies, and even in the hospital when I went in for sepsis, that was also related to the same thing. And they had me on IV antibodies, which is what they wanted me to go through anyways. I was going to have to go to the hospital because all the more oral meds were no longer working for me.
Uh,
Keflex, Macrobid, Levaquin, Cipro, all of them, they just had no effect. Maybe alleviated the pain for a couple hours, but it was really bad. And so I looked it up. I looked it up, and I told a little bit about this story. And I've been very private because I didn't want people to worry about me. I didn't really even, give and tell my children all the details because I didn't want them to worry. They were raising my grandkids. I wanted them to focus on that. And so, anyways, looking it up, I realized that I had candida, and that the yeast feeds off sugar. And so I realized also, because I had already been studying keto and carnivore and people that were doing those kind of things. And, speaking about the benefits that the Dr. Eric Berg, who was I think, a regular family physician, he started to examine and to look at and to specify on diet, which I think diet should be, the one of the most major important focuses of doctors and the medical establishment you know um in treating people, because it is, in my opinion, the root cause for a lot of things that people are going through, like with the candida that I had been experiencing and did not know. I just thought, oh, it was the paralysis because people with disabilities have chronic urinary infections and problems with that kind of thing. So, I just thought it had to be just being in a wheelchair for whatever reason. But when I looked it up, then I realized that there had to be some kind of connection to the sugar, because I was drinking coconut water twice a day, and I was eating after every meal. And even though I didn't do this every day, but I would like to always end with a dessert, as most people do. You eat and then you celebrate with a little
yeah.
sweet whatever, treat, whatever it might be. And so that night, and I've been so serious because I knew how bad off I was. I immediately cut sugar out and then ordered probiotics and candida cleanse and digestive enzymes. And those are the three things that I started implementing into my diet, besides not eating any sugar, any white rice, any white bread, any processed fast food, and no potatoes, because all,
Mm.
the carbohydrates are all glucose. And I just only ate meat and vegetables. Um, and in the first week, 2 weeks, I went through that whole process of just starving, wanting, my body wanted
Mhm.
sugar, and it was trying to trick me in every way. Eat some sugar, drink some sugar. Oh, and also, I
Oh.
only drink water and water with lemon sometimes. Um, but I don't drink juices anymore the way that I used to. No coconut waters, nothing with sugar, only just water. And
Mhm.
so that first week, I went through struggle, really, really, and I was taking like maybe 7 probiotics with every meal,
Wow.
and the 4 or 5 candida cleanse. I mean, I really oversaturated. Well, I don't think oversaturated because I knew that the candida was out of control within my gut, and that I had to create balance as soon as I could. And so I was taking 14, maybe 14, 15 probiotics a day, and the candida cleanse and the digestive enzymes, and doing the apple cider vinegar, um, almost so that the pills themselves were a meal. Yeah. But
Mhm.
after maybe 2 weeks, I went through that candida die off, that phase where
Oh.
my everything, my senses, my feeling, everything was disoriented, and even my depth perception. It's amazing how sugar affects so much, but everything, with the way that I felt, the way that I slept, everything, the inflammation, all that was, in my opinion, connected to the sugar. And then maybe a month after of doing this, I noticed a big turnaround, a big difference. And I was still at that time, still having the urinary pain where when I used the bathroom, my blood pressure was spiked. So I was taking, instead of every day, maybe once every third or fourth or fifth day, I would take one antibody. And then I got to the point where I didn't have to take them anymore. And now I've been off
Wow.
of them maybe 2 months, and the as far as the burning sensation and the blood pressure spikes, and also I used to pass out from just having fever,
Oh
from
man.
being infected all that
Mm.
time, that I would just pass out. I mean, it's crazy. Like one time, and me and my children, we were recording for the Patreon content, and they didn't realize that I had passed out, and I was just sitting there all quiet. And then I don't know how long it had been or how much time had passed, but finally they started talking to me, and then I came back to my senses. But I was sweating, I was sitting out in the sun, and they
Oh
didn't
man.
know that this is what had happened to me. But anyways, let me give you a chance to comment.
Well, it's interesting because, as you know, I've had kind of, well, several months ago, I had the first experience with passing out myself. Mine resulted in 2 broken ribs, but that was really strange. And then just like a couple weeks ago, I wasn't able to do a show with you because I was having a ton of nausea. Just like I was doing recent research on this because this is like a new symptom. I had no idea where this was coming from. And so I'm not sure if your doctors have ever talked to you about this. I've been talking to my chiropractor about this because she, of course, chiropractors are a lot more likely to give you, dietary advice and, just overall body advice, that things that and not write prescriptions is something that I've found with my chiropractor, who I'm also really good friends with. And so we were having this discussion, and she said, "Well, have you ever talked about or researched the vagus nerve?" And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Zen, with
Mm-mm.
um, it's the main nerve that starts from the base of your brain, and it goes all through your body. And she said, you can tell things, you can tell that there's something off with your vagus nerve. It's usually triggered by an illness or being healed from an illness, or but she said that the symptoms are kind of similar to what I've been experiencing with the fainting, the feeling kind of like I'm hoarse all the time. My voice has been kind of strange. having dizziness and nausea, and then just not feeling hungry. I was just thinking, oh no, I'm not getting sick again. But she said, no, no, no. She goes, your diet is really clean, and you're taking all your supplements. You know, you're probably not as exercising as much as you used to because of the broken ribs. But she said, I know that's all going to come back. But she said, for now, she said she's going to do things that will like strengthen my vagus nerve when she's adjusting me. And she said other things you can do to strengthen it is similar to what you're doing already, Zen, getting sun on the skin, eating clean, listening to really calming music, doing some really deep breathing, kind of putting a cold pack on your neck that kind of strengthens it, having foot massages, singing, laughing, having good conversation like we are right now. All of this stuff is, I had no idea that it affects all these areas of the body. And so I think that this is a pretty good answer because I was so confused as to why I passed out and broke my ribs several months ago. But this totally makes sense now that I'm kind of mapped it all out, and I've been doing a lot of these things to strengthen it. And so the nausea is gone. Praise the Lord. And it's horrible to have that nauseous feeling, and then especially like that dizziness you just described, Zen. It's just really, it just comes when you least expect it. And then, like, as with me, I don't even remember what happened, like, during the time when Noble was picking me up off the floor and in the middle of the night and getting me in the car and getting me to my chiropractor's office for an x-ray at 1:30 in the morning and getting to the ER. I
Wow.
mean, it's just, yeah, there was a lot that happened back in February 2nd is when I fell. But since then, it's been, frustrating because I haven't been able to go in the water, and, I like to paddle around and surf and bodyboard and stuff. And that was like my main exercise. But soon she x-rayed me yesterday, and she said, yeah, it looks like your ribs are good. She goes, it's probably still a little bit tight, but she said, you've been doing a lot of remodeling and stuff that normally people wouldn't do with broken ribs. So she said, maybe now's the time to just kind of take it easy and just let it heal, since we're not as crazy busy as we were. And but it's really good to have these answers, because I go to my regular like medical doctor and primary care physician, and told, and she's trying to prescribe me different stuff for the ribs. And then she said, oh, and we need to do some tests on you because they broke so easily, you might have osteoporosis. And I'm like, what? That has nothing to do with anything. And I've never had a broken bone in my life until this. So just it's so crazy that the difference in the way that each doctor approached it. And oh, by the way, too, Dr. Eric Berg is he was formerly a chiropractor. So that's why I think
Oh,
he's more open to the dietary stuff too.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no matter how people get into it, I think that a lot of individuals, especially those that are involved with the medical profession, they are starting to realize now the importance of food and the focus of diet in regard to health. And so there's a great awakening, I believe, happening in that regard right now. And a lot of people are coming to this awareness. And it's unfortunate that, this is also one of the topics which they are deleting information and making it little little known and little to be found. And that's unfortunate, because again, I do think that this is one of those larger issues that people, even if you're not contending right now, and those of you that are young and are able to get away with eating fast food every day, and, as somebody said in the chat, drinking energy drinks, multiple energy drinks or Mountain Dews, and
Oh man.
eating, yeah, that like you were on the M&M diet, Lisa,
The M&M and
people
Diet
eating,
Coke diet.
yeah,
That was
yeah, exactly.
horrible.
People eating chocolate and I mean, just candy bars and all that kind of stuff. You can get away with it for a certain amount of time, but after a while, um, it'll it it'll catch up with you. And a lot of people, even yourself, Lisa, you said you went through the experience with candida. I want to
Yes.
tell you, the listening audience, Another couple things that I've noticed since I've been on doing this. First off, I used to have problems with my feet swelling as well, to the point where, and I thought this was also just being in the wheelchair, but um, I wasn't able to wear regular shoes. So I have permanent suntan where Birkenstocks, the two straps going across the front of my feet. I have that permatan going on, and I've been yeah, I've been wearing Birkenstocks, I think, probably for 10 years. And because I'm not walking on them daily, I'm not wearing them out. And so I had a couple pairs that have lasted me this very long. But since switching and cutting sugar out of my diet, my feet don't swell up anymore. Um,
Wow.
and the horrible, horrible inflammation that comes with also um, I think it's also connected to the sugar, but the throbbing and the pulsation, and
Mm,
even though I still have sciatic nerve pain, just because I sit and I'm on my butt all day, and it's just it is what it is. But another thing that I had been contending with, and I had no idea that this was related as well, but I'm not a smoker. Haven't been for very, very long time. Maybe back in my early 30s. And I wasn't smoking cigarettes or anything like that. But I did partake the medical marijuana back then in that time. But now I don't smoke anything, and I don't haven't for years and years and years, decades and decades. But anyways, I had the mucus. I had and I wasn't sure if this was also because of the disability, but I had all this mucus where when I get up in the morning, I'd have to just like lean over to clear my lungs to be able to even breathe. And now I realize that, yeast also feeds off the sugar and it creates mucus in the body. And
mm,
so this
yes.
is another thing that has gone away, and my lungs are better for it. My breathing is better for it. And it's just, it's nice not because, sometimes I'd be in the restaurant eating food, and then I just all of a sudden couldn't breathe. And I have to excuse myself just to be able to clear my lungs so I could breathe and eat and not have complications doing both at the same time. But oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is another thing that was
Wow.
connected to all the sugar. But let me get you to comment again, and I'll tell about one other thing.
No, that's for sure. I mean, the mucus was a huge issue with me too. And I did have a chronic yeast infection as well for almost a decade. And I tried so many different antibodies myself, and also antifungals, which in prescription form they work pretty well for like short term, just to like zap it initially, but then they wanted me to continue for like years, and it was ending up damaging my liver, and there's all kinds of side effects that come with the things that seems they're not natural. A lot more side effects anyway than with the natural things you can get just by eating food. And that's what I was going to ask you too, Zen. I'm sure that this is going to be a question that comes up because I remember you asked me this, I think after you'd been doing this diet for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you were asking me if I could make a list of the things that I can eat because there's a ton of evidence of things that we cannot eat, but this is a question that every single person that I've worked with, especially the C patients, they just ask you, what can we eat? Because people get so afraid after a while to eat something wrong, and then all the symptoms are going to come back. I mean, there's that kind of underlying fear a little bit. And so I'll tell you some of the things that I eat, and then maybe Zen, you could share some of the things that you found that you can eat with no issues. But
Yes.
and these are some of the things that are on those lists that I was talking about earlier. that the things that I taped up on my fridge, and I said, these are the things that I can actually eat, and these are the things I want to totally stay away from, because I really, after going through all that pain and discomfort and everything, you just, I had like a kind of anxiety, even a little bit, when it came to eating, just because I was so worried that it was, I'd eat one bite of the wrong thing and everything's going to come back. But some of the basic things that have helped me a lot, and to also get a lot of protein so that you can feel stronger and your muscles will build up faster. I like the bone broth idea, especially because in those initial phases, you kind of do feel a little bit nauseous when you're going off all the bad food, all the things that were causing all these awful symptoms that had a ton of sugar or corn syrup um, or yeast-based products that just make your body go instantly into like a state of inflammation. But the bone broth, they have the beef, chicken, vegetable, that it seems like that's a pretty good base for someone that is having a little bit of the nausea and the cravings and everything, because it does make you pretty full. And especially one of the guys, the naturopaths that I was working with on these lists, he actually came to our house and he said, okay, I'm going to do a soup cooking class for you for you and Noble. So yeah, Noble and I sit on chairs in our own little kitchen, and he was doing demonstrations at the stove, and he was using everything with bone broth. And it was really interesting because he's Japanese, and so he said you can add miso into it and you can make it like a miso soup, or you can add in sesame oil, and it'll have like the Korean soup flavor, and you add vegetables in there, and onion, and then and it was interesting though, just by adding one separate seasoning, you can make this soup into a whole bunch of different cultural type of soups. And that's another thing I put on the list too, for the patients or the people that I'm working with, and myself as well, especially if they're don't know how to say it, like indigenous tribes, and if they have like family history in Asian, or like if they can go back to their grandparents and get some of that deep cultural food type of history of like what, because in general, grandparents and great grandparents of us in this generation anyway seem to live quite a bit longer than people are living today. So that made a lot of sense to me to go back and just ask what, like the elderly people in the community, even people are then in their 90s, ask them what their diet is, because more than likely you're going to find that this bone broth is a pretty good base, and and as one of their meals of the day. Another thing that's on the list is fresh fish, not farmed, of course, because we know that like one of the
Right.
worst possible foods for you is the farmed ones. So
Yeah.
if you have fresh fish, or if you live near ocean or any kind of type of body of water, just find out what the local fish are, and that's a really good thing to eat on this particular diet. Also, I think I shared this with you too, Zen. We found that there is only one type of potato that does not turn into sugar when it's digesting, and that's the Okinawan sweet potato. Some people call it the purple sweet potato, but that's something that's a pretty good base to have if you feel like you need some type of starch, and you don't want something, because all the rest of them pretty much turn into sugar. But this
Right.
particular one does not. And it's really good mashed. Like I love to make Okinawan sweet potato mashed and put some like really good butter in there, like Kerrygold or something, and melt that in there. And
Yeah.
it's a really delicious way to have a starch. But those are just an example. And then of course, it's a little different now working with C patients than working with people who've had candida like yourself or like myself. And these would be things that you want to kind of just test it out. Like some of these things are extremely healthy for you. I'm talking about like fermented foods, like the Korean fermented vegetables, or like sauerkraut. Those are really good as like prebiotics or probiotics. Some people can handle it, some people cannot. And so I think I shared with you too my experience with apple cider vinegar. For some reason, other
Hmm.
people love it. It's a great way to get your probiotics. Make it like Noble makes tea with it every day. He drinks that with turmeric and ginger, and just he loves his apple cider tea. But for myself, I can't handle it. For some reason, it causes me to have like an instant yeast infection. So I stay away from that, but sometimes it's good to listen to your body. So Zen, what are some things on that you found that you can eat that are easy to make or that are delicious, or things that you've grown to love now that you switched your diet?
Well, I like to eat eggs, free
Yes.
range, yeah, cage, uncaged, the free range organic chickens, the really bright yellow yolks. They do make a difference, but I like to eat eggs, and I eat them every morning because I believe they're easy to digest. They're easy to, as far as because being paralyzed, your system is a lot slower, and so I don't want to eat meat with every meal like the carnivore diet and those people do. Um, uh, and so I eat eggs every morning, and then I eat keto bread. I don't, do
Mm.
the white bread. Every once in a while, I love the sourdough, and the sourdough is still not as bad as regular bread, but I only do that on very special occasions. And I don't cheat because I knew how close I was
Mm-hmm.
to not being able to make it, not being here another day. And so um, I like to eat the eggs, and I'll just do like a simple bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, or just scramble a couple of eggs with some. Uh, and I think people need more salt than what they tell us, because
Mm-hmm.
we're perspiring all that salt, and I think salt has great benefits, especially the sea salt, and I like the Himalayan pink salts, and I don't do the iodize, and then I like the pepper in the ground pepper. But I do, I'll start every morning with eggs because again it's easy and it goes through your system quickly, and then by the time I'm ready to eat dinner, I'm hungry again. And that was the other thing that I wanted to tell people is that when I had and was eating sugar, I was bloated, and I was bloated to the point where I never really got hungry, but I was always over full and only eating twice a day. And even back then, I told you that I was already keto and had
Mm-hmm.
been trying the keto. But when I cut out the sugar, the bloating went away, and I was as far as bathroom got regular with the probiotics, and because I do take one pain pill a day, um,
Wow.
and and you know it that with the sugar, it would cause you to be somewhat constipated, and so I was eating prunes, and I still love to eat prunes. I think it's a health benefit for anybody that's having problems, especially people that don't drink water, because I find that some of the girls that work for me here, they don't drink water, and because of that, they're not regular at all. And
Oh,
but probiotics really, really do help with reestablishing good gut flora and being able to move, as far as your bowels and being regular, but just the not bloating and not having all those gas issues. Oh my gosh, what a
wow.
huge change. And already in 2 months, this is me, been in a wheelchair 30 years, uh, can't move very much. I do still exercise my arms and stuff, but it ain't like I can just go and run a marathon to lose weight or run around the block or even walk or anything. But I've lost maybe 25 pounds just
Wow.
yeah, just in the time that in 2 months of not eating sugar. And my kids know how serious I am about it. They know I don't eat sugar. I saw somebody in the chat was saying that they were now being and were concerned with their health, and they are now juicing. I would just say be really careful with what your juicing, because if you're doing a lot of fruit, you're
Mm.
still getting a lot of sugar, and that sugar still will lead to and cause issues. I the only fruits that I eat, and I don't eat them very rarely, are blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. And since another thing that I have changed in my life is that, and because this was all, I started learning about all this in the spring, we are now growing our own food. We,
Right.
planted all the lettuces and tomatoes, squash, zucchini, because I love those so much. We've got, kale, the red leaf lettuce, romaine, all these different types of lettuce, spinach, uh, all the different herbs, cilantro, parsley, rosemary, all those things. And another thing that I just recently found out, because I have a big batch of oregano growing wild in my backyard, um,
Wow.
is that oregano is the number one thing to fight candida. And
Wow.
I had no idea, but the Most High, really has blessed me. And so we just cut the tops off of it. And I looked it up, what oregano was good for. And lo and behold, it's good for candida. And so I started incorporating that into all my meals. I'm just putting it on everything and just eating it. I also like to eat basil. We have a purple and green variety, growing. But yes, we're now and have been uh, growing a lot of stuff, and like uh, things that are expensive in the grocery store, you can actually put into the ground. We put sweet potatoes, just cut them up, put them all in the ground. Now they're growing all wild. I put raspberry and blueberry everywhere, strawberries as a ground cover, and I'm just letting them all grow wild and go wherever they want. But yes, all the different herbs um, and because you can't trust. And I saw also another thing is that with the salads, green leaf, romaine, spinach, there has been more E. coli outbreaks with
Ugh.
salad stuff than there has even chicken. And that's saying a lot. There's been like 16 major outbreaks in the last 4 years in the United States, big recalls to the point where people have died. Parents have lost their children. And for those that may want to learn more on Netflix, there's a series that just came out called Poisonous, something poison, and it's about the food, and the sugar. Amazing that Netflix is now covering and releasing all this, and all this information is coming out. There's another one that was just released, something about gut health. You can search gut health Netflix and find the documentary that I'm talking about. But it was also about people that didn't realize, but that they were eating too much sugar and it was causing them problems. One was this individual who she was a vegan and she had to supplement because she was basically deprived of nutrients and she had to take all these supplements in order to maintain a vegan diet.
Mm.
Another individual, he was a competitive eater in Japan. He was one of those guys that challenged even Joey Chestnut, eating all the hot dogs. He could put away like 30, 40 hot dogs in 8 minutes or something. I mean, something crazy. And all that expanding his stomach and then contracting it, all that ended up causing him problems to the point where he didn't even enjoy food and had all these, different problems. And so, anyways, let me give you a chance to comment. We are almost to the first break, and then we'll get back into this. But I'm really glad everybody is listening and that you are open to hearing and that you're willing and that this is an important topic for you as well.
Yeah, it sounds like we have your community here is then they're overall really aware of health and the benefits of eating well. As I'm looking in the chat too, and it's cool if to take a look at Justin Joy and Zen's garden that he was describing. I saw it. Justin put it up on Facebook a couple days ago and showed a nice picture of him feeding you a nice fresh salad, Zen. That was so cool. And then also too, another gardener who's been posting her work is Sherry Papin, that one of our moderators in the chat. Her garden is unbelievably amazing.
Awesome.
Wow. If you want to take a look at her pictures on Facebook, she's got
Oh
some
yeah, I will. I definitely will. I don't
awesome.
normally go on Facebook a lot, but I will definitely do that because I'm
Yeah.
interested in food and growing it. It's
Oh,
important
same.
skill set.
Yeah, same here. And also too, I just saw recently, there's more and more countries realizing that the United States is one of the least healthy countries in the world, and they're banning our food that coming from the US as a result. And so I think there's over
Smart.
30 countries now that have banned United States food to come into their country. And I think one of the most obvious, well, actually there's two countries we've been to where it was really obvious that the restaurant owners, the grocery store owners, they did not carry American food. And one of them was Peru. They're very health conscious as well. They have a lot of
Right.
organic based farms there. And then also in the Philippines, when we were there, they have entire islands that they do not allow like Monsanto type of pesticides or anything. Everything is organic on the entire island. And
Good
so
for
it
them.
was really neat to see and hear testimonies of people there as well. Like one of the girls we met at one of the churches, she had recently gotten married to an American man, and she said that his health was pretty bad when he came over to the Philippines. But after just eating their food on that island where everything is totally organic and a lot of vegetables and fresh fish and all of that totally integrated into the diet and not eating fast food or anything, she said within like 2.5 months, his health was all the way better and he didn't have to take any prescriptions. And this was her husband. She had just married, so she was really grateful for that. But yeah, definitely, I think it's so important to learn to grow your own food. We're trying to do that here, and of course, it's a little different here because we have long seasons. Sherry and I were talking about this, how Hawaii's got like never-ending growing seasons, but there's only certain types of fruit and vegetables that will grow really well here. Just because of that, we have a ton of insects, a lot of more pests, and to not use pesticides and use the natural things. There's some things that they'll just devour. No matter how much rosemary or whatever you plant around it, the insects are somehow still going to get to it. But the tropical fruit and vegetables and everything does really well here, and we're blessed to have these tools to use and to be able to grow our own food is going to be so important as we get closer and closer to the tribulation.
Absolutely. I definitely think, as in the days of Noah, and also unless the days be shortened, there should be no flesh left. That part of that has to do with all the genetically modified. Because all the foods that are in the grocery stores, they're all seedless. And they are things that have been modified to have long shelf lives. Because, they don't care about your health, they care about making money off of you. And
Yes.
so, yeah, you want to definitely, you can't trust what's in the grocery stores. And now even all the fast food restaurants, they are going to try to introduce the cloned meat to people,
Uh,
and they're not going to tell you, of course, about it. But the contracts have already been signed by, like KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, all those fast food restaurants, which are all under the umbrella of one parent corporation. And so, those of you that are eating, still fast food, a lot of it is they use margarine. They don't even use real butter. And if you take a tub of margarine, put it outside, flies won't even land on it because they don't recognize it as a food item. But anyways, we are at break. We'll be right back. And please do, everybody, if you could hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and show your appreciation. We love you. Be right back for second hour.
hey, see you soon.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
For 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia, and this is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. I'm joined by my co-host, Lisa George, and we've been talking about her new book, which we have the title of it and the things that we have been going through. Ola means healing in Hawaiian, and so this is definitely a very important issue. And I had saw in the chat You mentioned something about the information on the copper and how you put pennies beside your plants. Can you explain what you're talking about?
Oh, sure. Actually, Tammy George sent me a video a while ago, maybe about a year ago, about the people are putting copper wire next to their plants and it's causing them to produce these super fruits or something. So we thought, hey, maybe we could give it a try on a smaller scale and just try it with some pennies because apparently copper seems to stimulate the plant growth somehow. I'm not sure how that works, but I know that soil that has more copper in it seems to produce more fruit on it, according to a few farmers that we know here in Hawaii. So we thought, hey, it doesn't hurt to give it a try. I never did have the greatest green thumb, but Noble is pretty good at growing stuff. So, I mean, so far we haven't seen like gigantic fruit yet or Nephilim-sized fruit or anything, but we're just hoping that maybe that'll help to stimulate the soil a little bit.
Oh, well, that's very intriguing. I'm gonna have to look that up. And this is really even though we did grow some things last year, this year has been the first time that we really have put forth a lot of effort. Got a number of raised beds now around my house, and I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube as to how to propagate things from seed. Definitely am starting also to put in a bunch of fruit trees because I know they're going to take a while to grow and to mature, and realize also that I had to have co-pollinators with certain kind of trees that I have, and that's why they're not producing fruit. So learning a lot, but I was thinking we should definitely invite Sherry to come on and to share with us her knowledge and since she's got the full-on garden set up, and that would be beneficial because I have a lot of questions, and certainly she's got the expertise. I think that would be an awesome thing. So, Sherry, if you are willing to do that, we'll do that at some point and bring you on, and Gary, if if you'd like to also come on with you, and you guys can share your knowledge about all the things you've come to know and save us a lot of trouble in trying to learn the particulars, because even things like growing food in shade, perennials, that was another thing. I'm trying to put things like asparagus and ginger and garlic and things that sweet potatoes, raspberries, blueberries, things that will come back every year once they get established. You don't have to regrow them and keep replanting them. And of course, fruit trees is like that as well. So I think that is an important thing for people to do because, most people here in America do have land or their own home, and or well, I won't say most, but a lot of people do. And so, and even if you can grow out of containers and pots, it's not, and the earth is so giving. The Most High has established every seed to bear hundreds of seeds. At the end of a season, at the end of its life, it will bolt and create all these seeds and propagate itself. And it's not, we just have to give it the right soil, give it the right water. But a lot of times, things, once you get them established, you don't have to even pay attention to them anymore. Once they hit that certain root level and they tap into the groundwater, they're good to go. And so, yeah, I think that would be a blessing. And certainly, this is something that Justin and I are sharing because he's been years ahead of me and so much knowledge about all this. And I'm interested in very much so now. So I'm learning a lot from him as well. And it's great to be able to share and have constant conversation because we are so interested. And yes, he brings over his foods, and I've been just giving him different seeds that, different plants that I've been ordering, and bought him a bunch of fruit trees and nut trees years ago, and so those kind of things. And so, yeah, plants, fruits, gardening, I think it's critical, and everybody should partake of the new harvest season. Even right now, you can plant things in summer and benefit before the end of the year. But let me give you a chance to comment. And yes, Sherry said that she will come on with us, and so we'll do that at some point. Lisa.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Zen. I mean, just getting to know Sherry over the last couple of years and texting back and forth and asking her about her plans and what she has and thinking of doing some bartering between us. But she even says that they even have her husband has an aquaponics house for fish right there on their property and for fertilizer, which I think is genius because fertilizer is such a big expense usually. And then to be able to have your own and know it's organic, know that you're the one producing it, right?
Right. Oh, and also I just got this 80-gallon thing for compost, and because it creates soil by the end of the season. And
Yes.
so I think that's something also everybody should have. We were just throwing, our fruits and vegetables, the scraps, into that to create a compost pile. And we had this huge grapeseed tomato come out of it, and it fed us the whole season. Joy and I, which she and I, we like to eat, things straight from the garden, and we'll go around. And even right now, like my gardenias are blooming, and I don't know if you have ever smelled the gardenias, but I love those. They're intoxicating. But things like that, and the tiger lilies, and but being able to eat, I've got muscadines and blueberries and things of that nature. I want to grow grapes and all these other things. But yeah, I think, and kids love it. My grandson, he loves to dig in the dirt, and my granddaughter, they help my son and play out in the dirt, and they need to be outside, get some sunshine, dig in the dirt, stomp mud puddles. They need to be kids. Most kids now are just pacified by electronics, tablets, computers, video games. They have no interest in going outside, and it's so unfortunate. They don't even know what a sunset looks like, and what an incredible experience that is, watching a sunrise or a sunset. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Speaking of that, Zen, I was going to ask you, have you seen, there's been a bunch of videos recently on YouTube, on TikTok, of people that are capturing sunflower fields, and the sunflowers are facing away from the sun, which so some of the things that people are discussing is the sun simulators that came out maybe 2016, 2017. Germany put one out, China's put one out. A bunch of other countries have put out these sun simulator things that uses just thousands of LED lights, and it follows a very similar pattern as the sun. And I started looking into this a couple of years ago because I noticed that the sun was quite a bit different than it used to be. And at first I thought it was just because of all the chemicals in the air and making it look a little weird. But I've actually captured the sun on camera right over our house in the shape of a pentagram. And I'm like, the sun does not have edges, like straight edges like that. And so they're saying that could be one of the reasons that the sunflowers are not facing the sun. And I don't think that it's that they have it up every day. I think that especially over here in Hawaii, we have so much military and testing going on of all kinds of other different things. So it doesn't surprise me that they have it going up over Hawaii. But I think, I mean, I don't see it every day. Like I used to go outside every day looking for it after I saw it the first time. But it's been a couple of years since I've actually seen it over our house again. But I just think that that's really interesting because, like, in prophecy, of course, the sun and the moon changing their courses. Maybe part of that's because they're putting the fake sun up there, the fake moon. Who knows what they're doing? But they're not going to tell us, but they probably will eventually in plain sight, if not already through, the predictive programming shows through like The Simpsons or Family Guy or something. But it's definitely interesting that people are capturing this phenomenon of the sunflowers facing away from the sun.
Yeah, that is strangely odd. And I would be intrigued into, learning the cause of that.
Yeah.
I pray that, the bees are all repopulating and gathering in their numbers and getting strength and stronger. because I know there was a lot of die-off from the genetically modified stuff and all of that. But yeah, that's very, very odd. And another thing that a lot of people don't know is that aspartame, which is here in America is an alternative sweetener. It's so very toxic for you, and it is banned, illegal in most other countries, and had been here until Donald Rumsfeld was able to push it through, get it approved by the FDA. But um, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny wrote or created a documentary about this called Sweet Misery. And this, for a lot of people that are drinking diet drinks, they put that in there, or like Splenda or things like that. And they're so not good for you. If I do eat sugar, like it's stevia or the monk fruit, which they are, or, I used to drink with the sugar cane in the coconut water, or like when I did drink root beers, I used to like root beers and they had the sugar cane in them, but I don't do any of those things anymore. And it's been a great benefit, as I said, and I like to eat nuts, pistachios, cashews, almonds. Those are great. Snacks for me. And I started drinking the kefir, as you had mentioned, but basically in the evening, I'll do eggs in the morning, and sometimes, which one of my favorites is just a turkey bacon, because I am, kosher. I don't eat scavengers, pig, swine, any of that. Yeah, I follow the dietary laws that are put in the scriptures by Yahuwah. I know a lot of people think, oh, Old Testament done away, whatever. I don't agree with that at all. I think Christ came to fulfill the testaments, and he did fulfill the early Levitical feast days, and will come to fulfill the latter. And I think that there's a reason why we're not to eat scavengers, and especially animals that can't sweat and that eat the carcasses, what would be considered diseased. But God made them in that way so that they would serve in that capacity. But we are not to eat those things, in my opinion. And the whole vision that Peter had of, the unclean and the clean animals, that had nothing to do with the diet. That had everything to do with the Gentiles being grafted onto the olive tree, being brought into what was and accepted as part of spiritual Israel. And now it doesn't matter if we're Jew or Gentile. We are family of Christ. We're all, and the serpent seed has now been accepted, that Christ has extended salvation to everybody. And so it's not true what the Illuminati families teach their children, that they cannot be redeemed, that they are part of, the establishment, the so-called family, and that they are committed and dedicated to evil and have to be their whole lives, because nobody else will accept them. But that is not the truth. Christ opens and accepts everybody. And even Cain, the Yahuwah went to him and said, if you would just do good, I will accept you. And so he died for all of us, to give us all forgiveness of sin, return us to our first state, return us to paradise and salvation and eternity. And what a incredible gift. There's no greater gift that can be given than eternal life. Just that, it's absolutely mind-blowing to even think about that and to wrap your mind around it. But Lisa, back to you.
Yeah, that it is. That's such a mind-blowing thing that the Most High did for us and sent his only son. It is hard to wrap your mind about it when you really sit down and think about that. But I wanted to go back to what you mentioned about the sodas because, as you mentioned before, that was one of my addictions was Diet Coke or Diet Dr. Pepper even. And I didn't realize, that it seems almost like the chemical sweeteners like saccharin or aspartame are even like worse than sugar almost. I don't know if that's possible, but
Right.
they cause brain damage, all kinds of long-lasting horrible effects. And I think I wanted to share this too. As you know, my son Isaac, and he recently got married last year. He got engaged at the Sacred Word Publishing Conference, and last year, and for their wedding, because he's become extremely health conscious, and we're same as you, and we don't eat the scavenger animals. We eat those that were sanctioned by the Most High in the Torah. And one of the things that they did at their wedding reception, they had all healthy food. But one of the things that they did with the drinks was because knowing that they were having friends around their age that a lot of them are totally addicted to soda. And, that's all by design, of course, that you watch anything and they're going to have ads for soda, ads for pop, ads for Coke, Pepsi, everything is like all over the place in the media. But what they did at their wedding is they found a probiotic soda that has no sugar, is sweetened with monk fruit, and it's called Olipop. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they do sell that.
Yeah. Actually, yes, my kids told me about it when they came back, and I
Yeah,
actually bought some for them. So yeah.
yeah, but if you really like root beer, Olipop has a delicious root beer. In fact, that's my favorite flavor. There's a root
Really?
beer.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and it's flavored with cassava root and also monk fruit, and it tastes exactly like root beer. I mean, they use the actual root to make this.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I would ask them to get you some of that. The root beer and the Dr. Pepper, those both are root based, and they taste exactly like the bad one. So that's kind of been my way to kind of like get a little taste of soda here and there. Not
Uh,
every day, but to treat
yeah.
myself maybe once every couple weeks or something, I'll have one of those.
Right. Yeah, I was never really big on carbonated drinks, but I did like, root beer every once in a while. And so, yeah, I'll look into that. I'm still for the interim, probably for at least 6 months. I'm not
Yeah.
doing any sugar. I do once a week I get these almond flour chocolate chip cookies that are from Simply Mills or something like that. I get them from Amazon Fresh, and they're like less than 1 gram of sugar, and so I will eat one of those whenever I get like super super sugar cravings or whatever. But I don't even once a week or once every other week. I don't do it, and I don't cheat because I know my health is on the line. My life really was on the line at that time. And so I'm learning to do everything different. And this is a lifetime change for me. I'm not ever going back to the way that I was. And I feel so much better just not being bloated and overstuffed, and actually having, like every day now when I wake up before my meals, my stomach growls. And so I know that I'm empty and my body is ready for food. And again, I don't have that bloated and that gaseous feeling. And I love that. I love feeling empty. Like, I'll tell you a funny story. My granddaughter, she likes to climb up on my lap and ride with me. I'll take her up and down the streets in my electric wheelchair. And when she was real young, she climbed up on my lap, and she was pointing at my stomach, and she said, "Baby,
Oh,
baby." I said, "No, Ella, this is my shelf. This is my shelf for my remote control." And she was laughing, and it was so cute. She was so funny. But yeah,
oh my
my
goodness.
shelf, and I've had my baby, and it's now gone, and it's amazing. Like, again, I've not been able to. I can't like run down the street or even walk. I'm paralyzed, but I've lost like 25 pounds just from not eating the sugar and eating. And I eat steaks. I eat bacon, turkey bacon. I eat eggs and cheese and salads and vegetables. I love I love vegetables, and I'm careful. I don't do potatoes. I haven't even done sweet potatoes in a very, very long time, but I do like zucchini, squash, a lot of garlic, and now a lot of oregano. So if I were all of you that are listening, it's so easy to grow oregano, and it comes back every year, and it grows like a mint. Which mint will overtake a garden if you let it. So just plant some oregano and add it to your salads, add it to whatever, and things like arugula. They also, you can plant those in the shade. All the salad stuff you can plant in the shade. Um, Kale and red leaf lettuce, romaine, spinaches, those kind of things, they grow well in the shade, and so and they come back. So why not?
Yeah, yeah, it's so cool when you have it right there in your yard all this time. It's the thing that it's going to help heal you, right? With your oregano.
Yes.
That's one thing your kids notice too when they're at our house. Some of our plants are a little bit larger than what they can grow on the mainland, but one of the things they noticed was our oregano leaves. I think Justin even said, "Oh, look, that's kind of like Nephilim oregano," because our oregano leaves are about 4 inches across.
Wow,
And they're
that's
and they're
awesome.
they're yeah, they're thick. Like you can actually squeeze it and it'll
Oh, that's
start dripping.
amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that normal oregano is supposed to be much smaller, but a friend gave us a bunch of oregano, and it grows wild. It's everywhere, and the same thing is true for, I don't know if you've heard of the noni tree or noni fruit. It's
I
probably.
have heard of that, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I asked Justin and Joy if they wanted to try some because we have noni trees in abundance over here. I mean, they grow wild in like parking lots and stuff. And it's because
Right.
they're just extremely resilient, but they're so medicinal. And the fruit kind of looks like a little alien. If anyone wants to Google that or look up noni fruit, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's Noni. And it doesn't taste like a fruit. It doesn't even really look like a fruit. It just looks like this white thing with a whole bunch of dots all over it, and it grows kind of like it looks kind of like I don't know how else to explain it, but and like an alien. But the juice, they sell it at the local health food store over here, and this is the juice that people cook, and they kind of, when you cook it, you kind of get rid of a lot of the great medicinal values, but just for like a bottle, I think like a 12-ounce bottle of noni juice over here is like $80. and then we have it like right in our yard. And so that's one of the things on the healing protocol that is in the book that's coming out, and is noni. And if you can have access to just noni seeds, they grow like weeds. I think that you could probably grow them in the mainland no problem, just because they're so resilient. Yeah, like the tree.
Yeah.
A bird planted ours in the front yard, and Noble tried to kill
Love
it.
that. Love
Noble
that
tried to kill it. Yeah, he tried to kill it like 3 times, and it wouldn't die. He wasn't sure what it was at first. So then when we finally let it grow, it's beautiful. The leaves are just massive, and it's this gorgeous plant. But you have to make sure you harvest the fruit, because once they start dropping, each fruit probably has maybe 200 or 300 seeds in it, and so they will reproduce very fast, at least here anyway. But that's something I'd recommend. That's like the most alkaline fruit. I think that's the only fruit, maybe one of just a few fruit that I have on the list of healing things, just because the majority of fruit, it's very high in sugar content. Even if it's natural sugar, it's something you don't want to have as like a regular part of your diet. Like you said, it's good to have it, in moderation. Maybe just once or twice a week have some fruit, but not like constant, because then your blood sugar is just going to be up constantly, right?
Yes, exactly. And again, I do believe that the diabetes that a lot of people are dealing with, that is also in the where the insulin, all of those issues are related to sugar, and also the candida and the big C. And since I made this big change in my life, I've been telling even my doctors, because my urologist, I called her and told her, and they really didn't even expect me to still be alive. And And she, has other patients that are having these issues where they have chronic urinary problems and they don't know what to do with them. And so I told her, tell them to try what I did and see if it works for them. So hopefully that information will get passed on and they'll share it with others. But I
Wow.
also just recently called another one of my urologists, and this was at the spinal cord injury hospital, and I want her to know. And so I have an appointment to have a teleconference meeting with her in this upcoming June, and I'm going to tell her the whole story because she
Wow.
also, and being a spinal cord injury, focused doctor, she didn't know how to help me or what to do either. And so I went a long time just suffering and being on antibodies until I was able to make this great turnaround thanks to the Most High. But share the name of that soda again and spelling for people
Oh,
that
sure.
may want to look it up.
Sure. It's Olipop. It's Olipop. I put it in the chat too. But like I've seen it at Safeway. I mean, your local grocery store is more than likely to carry it, especially if they're a big chain. But I usually get mine at the health food store. I'm sure like Whole Foods or what we call Whole Paycheck carries it. And
I got
because
it on Amazon.
on Amazon.
Uh,
Okay, perfect. Oh,
Amazon
perfect.
Fresh, yes.
Oh, right on. Okay. Yeah. So that's a really good alternative for soda. And again, do everything in moderation. It's delicious for like a treat, but I wouldn't recommend drinking it every day just because if you do things that are I mean, and everything in there is healthy, but try it out too and make sure that your body, see how your body adjusts to it too, since it's kind of a new thing. Like it'll be like a new, see how your body adjusts to the sweeteners in there, just because, it's always good to kind of test it out at first before you have a huge amount. But yeah, it's so wonderful to be able to just eat clean and know, like, for the most part, like, especially if you're growing your own food, you know who grew it, you know what things you did
Right.
did or did not do to make that grow. Or like for us, we have friends that are farmers nearby, and we get a lot of our fresh produce from them, and we know that they don't put pesticides, they don't put any of that stuff. And it's cool to see how the farm actually works, which is, I think that's such an awesome idea to have Sherry come on the show, because she and her husband have a working farm. And I mean, that's what they do. And so, she's even mentioned in the chat that they learned from a master gardener 24 years ago or
Wow.
something. And so it's so cool that she could pass on that information to us because, she's been doing this for the past over 20 years now. And so to see a working farm. I'm not sure how Sherry does it. I'm excited to hear more about that. But how our friends do it that live nearby here in Hawaii, they just have like 3 acres. And what they do, and that's a pretty big piece of land on Oahu, because it's usually our house lots here are so tiny. It's hard to grow large trees or anything in the yard here. But the way they do it is they have someone deliver compost to them, or it's basically leftover fruit and vegetables from the hotels, like from leftover from the buffets, and it's only fruit and vegetables. Yeah, and so that they dump that. They have a big pile, and then the chickens just run around like they're not caged. They do have places where they roost and where they lay their eggs, but for the most part, they're free to. There are hundreds of chickens, and they're free to just run around the farm, the 3 acres, and then so they eat the compost from from the piles. They eat the fruit, the vegetables, everything. So it's all like, they're not giving them chicken feed. They're eating like really like actual food, that we would eat. And
Right.
there are other animals as well. They have goats, they have cows, and it's all the same. And it's really cool just to see how all of that works. And it's really smooth. They have it's just a husband and wife running this, and they've both been raised on farms, and so they know exactly. Wake up early in the morning, they do all their chores, they take time to rest, they take time to study scripture. And this is
Dude,
also too where we have our
what
in-person
a
extra
life.
biblical studies. So it's really neat. It's really neat to see that working.
Yeah. And again, I think they are living the life that like a lot of people want and desire. And, as you said, the importance of growing your own food, knowing where it came from, I think that's so incredibly beneficial. And especially, I had mentioned about how most of the restaurants out there, they use margarine, and how margarine is not a food item. If you look up the breakdown for the structure, it's excuse me, one molecule off from being plastic.
Ugh.
And if you take a tub of margarine, open the top, put it outside, the flies won't even land on it because they don't recognize it as a food item. And people that eat it, clogging your arteries because it's not a food item, and arterial sclerosis, the hardening of the arteries, all that. If your body can't get rid of this almost plastic product, I mean, what does that do for you? That if you're just eating it, consuming it, it's not good for you. And so,
Right.
yeah, those kind of things. One other question, I'm turning back over to you. Um, Pasta. Love pasta, and that was another hard thing for me to cut out of my diet. But I do actually eat pasta. I just eat chickpea pasta or angel hair. What do they make it out of? The palm fruit or the
Oh
hearts of,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is also a really good pasta. And so there are alternatives out there. You just have to learn how to accommodate your diet, and especially if you really like to eat certain things. Like I still love pizza, but I eat the cauliflower crust
Yeah,
pizza,
same here.
and it's so good. It's better than regular flour pizza, in my opinion. And so there are things that you can do to just transition yourself. And I watched a lot of people also when I initially was, because it's the most difficult thing for people to change their diet. A lot of them will kill themselves out of routine rather than make any changes. Like with diabetes, cutting off your toes, people drink sweet tea, those
Mm.
kind of things. It's hard for people to change up their behaviors so that they can be of a benefit and not harm themselves, because we really are killing ourselves out of routine, out of habit with the foods that we eat, the processed foods, the chips. And I used to also love eating chips. I don't do that, but Joy introduced me to a healthy alternative. We just put kale into the air fryer and put olive oil and sea salt on it. Oh, and it's so good. And it's just like a healthy chip. I love to eat the dried seaweed with the sea salt and things like that. And so there are alternatives, and you will actually learn to love these things once you change your eating habits and your flavors. Everything becomes modified now because of me staying away from sugar. I don't like ketchups, barbecue sauces. They're
Mm.
too sweet. Um, I don't like those kind of things anymore. I like tzatziki sauce. I like hummus, things like that. The cucumber sauce, and yeah, so those are, and I get the ketchup without the sugar, the unsweetened, organic ketchups, and so things like that, and they're much better for you, much flavorful. And I also think that for parents, if you implement these changes now into that of the lives of your kids, they're going to be the better for it. And um, they will also learn. And, kids will only eat what you buy. I have a friend here, and she's pre-diabetic. She drinks sweet tea, and I keep trying to tell her to, as I'm making the changes, because she cooks for me
Mm.
every day, and she she knows I don't eat any sugar. And she cooks. I don't eat the white rice. I don't eat the white breads. Those kind of things are still here in the house for other people that do that kind of thing. But I don't personally eat any of that. And I don't have a problem anymore. I used to, if it was in sight, it's a temptation. But, again, I know that my health and my life were at risk, and I don't want to take chances with all that. I'm just so grateful to have found answer, resolution, and direction for all the things that I was going through and suffering, because I never want to go back to that place. Never, ever do I want to go back to that space where using the bathroom was like molten lava, or, forcing cut broken glass out of your system. It is
Ugh.
horrible. Oh my gosh, it's the most god awful thing. Lisa.
Yeah, that's just, it's awful to think about. Just a basic thing that everybody does, and to have it be that painful is just, it's horrible. But I wanted to kind of go back to what you're talking about with the margarine. And there's been some talk in the chat about seed oils, because that's another thing that we discovered. We eating
Yes,
healthy, we're eating a lot of salad and
very
everything.
important.
Trying to find a dressing that does not have canola oil in it is a lot more difficult than most people would think,
Right,
because Noble and I went even into our local health food store. We're looking for a good salad dressing, and there, out of the entire shelf, and this is at the health food store, not even the regular grocery store,
right,
there was only one salad dressing that did not have canola oil in it as a base. And it's so scary, because that canola oil is similar to putting that in your body is just drinking regular motor oil. It's not even there's not even a plant called canola. It's this rapeseed plant, and they squeeze it out of there, and it's very similar to motor oil in its composition. And so that's one thing. I mean, it's just, that's a real basic thing that people can do, just to at least have that not in your system, because that causes all kinds of things, dementia.
exactly.
It leads to diabetes. I mean, there's so many issues if you can just cut out even just that one thing. And so, and it's not just canola. There's other seed oils in there too that we finally just eliminated everything and just said, okay, we're just going to use coconut oil for cooking, because that can be heated to a pretty high temperature and not turn carcinogenic. And
Yes,
avocado oil, that's another good one. We
yes,
use that for making like other dishes that we just need to. We have a spray. We can just spray it on the pan, and so those are two. And olive oil is good for if you're not going to heat it. Like if you're going to use olive oil like to make a salad dressing. So Noble's lately
yes.
he found a recipe on YouTube, and for the past year he's been making his own Caesar salad dressing, and just using all organic things, making it with
Nice.
olive oil, like extra virgin olive oil, organic based, and it's so delicious. It is so awesome. And I also noticed too, once they began introducing canola oil, I think probably back in the 70s, early 80s, when they were really, really pushing it hard in the media, a lot of people started using it. It's super cheap compared to all the rest of them, and they end up paying the price. But it also contributes to the amount of sun that you can handle. So like for me, my skin is very fair usually, but I like to go out in the sun and do grounding and go in the water, and just I love to be in the sun. And I would get sunburned so easily when I was eating all those seed oils. Like if I was having a salad every day made with canola oil based, I can guarantee I would be sunburned in like probably half an hour. But now, in the past couple of years, since we've eliminated all of that from our diets, I can go in the sun for a couple hours, and if I do get a little bit pink, it's gone by the next day. And so it's kind of like a cycle I see happening, where parents will just slather sunscreen all over their children to make sure they're not going to get burned. But the
Right.
reason that they're going to get burned most likely is because they have a high level of seed oil in their diet. So it's all part of the agenda, I think, because they make huge amounts of money on sunscreen, and especially if it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like mineral based. And that's on purpose, because they know that the more
Right.
seed oil they keep putting in everyone through fast food and through salad dressings and whatever, that the more sunscreen they're going to be selling. It's such a horrible agenda.
The other thing, and again, people can look it up for yourself, is that there are carcinogens in those suntan products. They actually can cause skin cancer. So be careful what you're lathering up on your children. Read the ingredients, because and you'll find that some of those things are not beneficial. And what we were talking about with regard to the diet drinks, there is that additive that is based on and I know this is gross, but people need to be aware, aborted fetal tissue. They have made that into a food additive, and they add it to diet drinks as well. So I forget the name of it. You can look it
I
up for
think
yourself,
I
but
think
it
they
is an
sometimes
ingredient.
call them. I'm sorry, Zen. I think they
No,
sometimes
no,
call it
please.
natural flavors. If it says natural flavors with no explanation, that's a possibility of what it could be.
It's also it starts with a S. I forget the name of it, but you can look it up for yourself.
Is that
And
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Is that Soylent Green? Is that the one you were talking about?
No,
Maybe. Okay.
that's a movie that it shows how. But anyways, we won't go into that. But yeah, that's a very interesting movie. Check it out. I'm not even gonna ruin the plot for you, but very interesting. You should definitely watch that. It's very intriguing, especially with the times that we are in. But yes, we agreed. And I love mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the mayonnaise that is now with the avocado oil, and I think that's just things like that important. uh, and I just saw recently this individual on YouTube. He made his own mayonnaise, and he made it from I forget just two ingredients, but he said it was so much better. And I'll have to look it up. It's in my history, as far as my YouTube history of watching. But I'll share it. And so things like that, even making your own dressing, apple cider vinegar, a little olive oil and lemon, some spices, very easy and so much better for you and more flavorful, because a lot of those things have been sitting there for a long time, were processed long ago, preservatives put in them so that they can sit on the shelf for years, months, whatever it is. But yes, I love avocados, and I'm trying to grow a tree, an avocado tree. Um, but yeah, I'm starting all those long-term things now too, because I know it'll take a long time. But I'm just grateful. I feel better, and thank you everybody in the chat for listening and supporting us.
Yeah.
Barbara is asking about eggs and oil. I use I like butter.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like my eggs and even my steaks. My friend Nora, she will cook them in butter and sear them in the butter. And as long as like the Kerrygold butter, as you was mentioning, but yes, butter. I don't know why people buy margarine and I can't believe it's not butter, because it is not butter. It's not even a food item, and why you wouldn't use real butter when it's so tasty, makes everything taste so good. And it's my opinion that it's not as bad as they say. I think it's actually beneficial, and I would use butter over margarine any day of the week, year, month, decade,
No.
century. Lisa.
Oh, me too. Me too. That reminded me, one of the things that was one of the favorites for your kids when they were here. I think all your Justin, Joy, and the kids all love these. I was making them and this is all in Kerrygold butter. It was like a pastrami melt. We got the organic pastrami. Which is
Oh,
beef
yeah.
based. And then we got the organic cheese, and then Kerrygold butter, and then we got organic sourdough bread, and then I put sprouts in there. and some mustard, and that was, I think they would, I would
Yeah.
make them that at least every other day when they were here, just for some sandwiches to take out. And they were like, that was so good. What did you put in there? But just to have this, sprouts are so amazing for you. And so I love to try to
Yes.
put sprouts in sandwiches whenever I can.
Yes,
And like
microgreens.
you, yeah, and like you, it's that we get the organic sourdough bread because that's probably the easiest to digest with the
Mhm.
probiotic component in there, with the fermented
Yes.
component there. And
Well,
another
that's
thing too, yeah, and getting the cauliflower pizza, oh my goodness, it's so delicious.
yes.
We get ours at Costco. That's we only have like really basic stores here. There's
Mhm.
I'm not saying yes, go and shop at Costco because it's like a major thing, and they do carry quite a bit of organic things, which I really appreciate. And also the cauliflower rice, they have that too, where it's
Yes.
'cause yeah, and that's a huge deal here. Diabetes is just over the top here in Hawaii because a lot of people, that's one of their staples, is they eat white sticky rice every day, like 2 or 3 scoops. They always eat it with their sweet meat, and it's just so bad because it changes to sugar. It causes all kinds of health conditions. It's just, I mean, and it can be okay if you eat it in very small portions and with a lot of vegetables and meat, but why even do that when you can get something that tastes just as good with cauliflower rice and it's vegetable
Mhm.
based?
Right. And yeah, my mother is Korean. And so one of the things I used to love to do is just wrap rice in seaweed, or like the
Yeah.
California rolls with the different vegetables, avocado and egg, and just those. I love. I could eat those literally every day. They're just, but again, now I avoid the rice. I used to love the fried rice too, and it's just
Mm.
not worth it to me. I know there will be a time I will get to the point where I can start consuming these things again in moderation, or maybe a baked potato once a month, or something like that, but not every day, and not even you know just maybe once a week. But um, this is a lifetime change for me. It's not worth it to me to have all of those conditions which are connected to the overconsumption of sugar, processed sugar, fast foods. I don't trust anything in the grocery stores. It's all seedless. It's all genetically modified. And yes, and I was going to mention the other thing. I'm now doing the broccoli sprouts too. You
Oh,
can get,
good.
the big bags of seeds, and all you have to do is uh, put them in water overnight, 24 hours, and then put them in the darkness for 3 days, and then put them in light for one day. And there you go. You have microgreens, and they are so good for you and so good. And like you said, I'm trying to put them on everything, microgreens, the sprouts. I used to love bean sprouts and all of that as well, but I just don't trust the grocery store. So
Yeah.
do it yourself.
Yep, I totally agree. And I wanted to go over it real quick. I know we're getting close to the end of the show here, but just for the people in the chat, you mentioned that you do probiotics and digestive enzymes, and I kind of wanted to touch just for a minute or two on the digestive enzymes and how those are so important for us now, because this is how the naturopath explained it to me. He said it because we didn't used to need these, 50, 60 years ago, but now we do, just because the quality of the food, especially if you eat store-bought food still, and or even if, like you said, Zen, you're going to be very strict with the diet now, and then maybe in the future you'll be able to pull, a couple things here and there that you normally wouldn't eat and not be affected as so adversely, right? So
Right.
the enzymes will help, like, because I did that. For 2 years I was super strict with this diet. I did not divert at all, and then now I'm kind of finding that I can do that, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or so. I can have something I normally wouldn't, and in a small portion too. But on those instances, I'd make sure that I take the digestive enzymes, because that will pull out whatever nutritional value is in the food, and it'll send it to all the right areas of your body that needs those particular nutrients. And your body is programmed to do that anyway. That's how the Most High designed us. But because of the lower quality of food that we're getting, because of all the spraying, things that we can't control, the chemtrails that are coming down on our produce, the whatever's in the water, whatever they're putting in the water, if you have water through the city. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things that come into play that we cannot control. But if you take the enzymes, it's more likely that you won't have adverse effects if you do kind of deviate from the diet, and also to just increase the nutrients in your body overall, and making sure you're getting the most out of whatever food you're eating when you take it with the enzymes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that did not hear the very first part of the show, please do go back and check out the archives. But I had been dealing with basically candida for a very long time, and didn't know that the yeast in my body was feeding off the sugars. And I think that, again, the diabetes and the big C, that those are all connected to and part of an extension of, the sugar, the inflammation, and the overgrowth in your body, and what kind of symptoms it causes. The swelling in my feet, and how I was also gaseous and bloated, full all the time, and still just craving sugar all the time. Every night, I'd want to eat something sweet all the time. And also the problem with the mucus, because all that was an extension and growing from eating sugar. And now all those problems have resolved themselves. And it's amazing because I've been dealing, and it almost caused my death. And so if any of you, and again, we're not medical professionals, this is not medical advice in any manner. I'm just saying that this was my experience. This happened to me. It changed my life to implement these changes, and it might do some positive benefit for you. And the scriptures tell us, my people are killed for lack of knowledge. Certainly, this is one of those areas where people don't know a lot about diet and how it is connected to disease and illness, dis-ease, So, Lisa, final comment from you, sister.
Yes, and for everyone listening to this podcast, we've gotten so much amazing comments in the chat, and so many people have so much to share. I think it's so cool, the community coming together like this. But if you have any friends who want to hear this information, please share this video with them. If you know anyone who's been diagnosed with the big C, this is a good video for them to watch, and just get some ideas of where to start on their healing. Or if they have issues with candida, or they have issues with having constant yeast infections, or just fatigue and just bloating, and all the symptoms that lead up to being diagnosed with candida, this can help them. And I think this is a very good conversation, Zen. I really appreciate you sharing your testimony, and also being willing to put your testimony in my book. And so we'll be continuing to work on that, and then maybe we can do a follow-up show when the book comes out, or whenever you feel like it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
One other thing too is that people say that brain fog, depression, moodiness, emotional outbursts, and even things like the Asperger's and ADHD, Crohn's, all those kind of things are also related to sugar. All right. God bless all. Good night.
Blessings, everyone. Thanks, Zen. Shaloha, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.